morning, everybody. I'm Mark Hamilton, and I will call this meeting of the Fitchburg Bicycle Committee to order at 7:01 or 02 a.m. on Tuesday, October 3rd. And the first item of business is to ensure that we have a quorum. And you're saying we do have a quorum, correct? We have a quorum. Thank you very much. Then we'll go into the draft minutes of August 1st, 2023. Has everybody had an opportunity to review those minutes? Is there a motion to approve? Oh, yeah, thank you, Kelly. Is there a motion to approve the minutes or have further discussion on these minutes?
I move to...
Mark, should we do a roll call first?
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. It wasn't on my agenda. So, okay. We will do roll call, starting with Alder Maldonado.
Here.
Kelly.
Here.
Phil.
I'm here.
And I'm Mark Hamilton. So we do have a quorum. Sorry, folks. So back to the minutes of the August 1st meeting. Is there any further discussion on this? I thought I heard Kelly start to make a motion.
I move we approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved by Kelly and seconded by Joe. Is there any further discussion on these minutes? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Okay, minutes are passed. We will also welcome Don Krim. Hello, Don. Good morning. We are ready to move on to item number 3 on the agenda. So we have public appearance for non-agenda items. And I have two people in the room, Steve Arnold and Pam Sprecher. Is there anybody else who has given us a online notice?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Then we will move forward. And the first item on the agenda after that is the resolution R17723, which is amending the 2023 capital projects fund budget. And Phil, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Yeah, my mic's active. Yeah, so this is included in the packet. It's pretty self-explanatory if you read through the resolution and referral sheet, but in short, completing bike lanes along Wayland Road has been a priority for the bike committee for a number of years. It has been budgeted for a few years. There was money allocated to this project in 2023 via the ARPA funding that Fitchburg received. That was moved over to the TID closure funds, one-time TID closure funds earlier this year. The mayor's proposed budget, or the mayor's proposed that money instead be allocated to two separate projects that she considers to be higher priorities. One is the Kids Crossing Playground project, and another is reconstructing the Tower Hill Park shelter. So that's the gist of this resolution is transferring that money from Wayland Road bike lanes to those two projects.
Okay. Is there any comment by our committee members before I open it up to the people who've signed and asked to speak? Well, go ahead, Kelly.
Since this was part of the 2008 bike and ped plan, it seems unwise to keep kicking this can down the road. Construction costs for roads are just getting higher and higher, and this is a safety issue. I think the other issues that would be funded instead are nice, but this is maybe the difference between life and death for some vulnerable road users. So I disagree with this resolution.
Okay, thank you, Kelly. Other comments from the committee?
It is a difficult decision to make, but I'll also disagree with the movement of the funds. Mainly because of precedence. If it was written into our plan, I think there should be a compelling reason to take it out, and that should involve some deliberation. So I'm also not in support of moving to one.
And I guess one thing that I would add, and sorry to leave this out, there were a couple of additional notes here. In addition to the mayor seeing these other two projects as higher priorities, it's noted in the resolution that funding bike infrastructure within the urban service area, particularly in healthy neighborhoods, is seen as more crucial there. The resolution does state that the plan is still to include this in the CIP for future years, but the mayor hopes that it can be funded by grants and or donations.
Thank you, Phil. Don, do you have a comment?
I do. I echo both Kelly and Joe's comments. When I think about all the work that went into that plan years ago, it really was not just nice to have, but a safety issue. And because we've already been delayed over several years, I think it should remain in queue.
Thank you, Don. I'm going to weigh in as the chairman here real quickly, and I'm in concurrence with my other three committee members. This has been kicked down the road, and Kelly, I used that very term about a half an hour ago, so we need to resolve this. This is a safety issue in our city, and while the other two are important, I concur, we need to find a different way to resolve this, and more importantly, I'm not sure how much discussion's been held around it personally. So, with that, if nobody else has any comments on it from the committee, I will open it up to our two folks from the audience, and you have 3 minutes each to speak on it. Steve Arnold, go first.
Thank you for taking our testimony. The most common type of bicycle motor vehicle crash in the rural areas of the country and of Fitchburg is overtaking crashes. And these are particularly troublesome on Wayland Road because with our partial bike lanes, we currently have 4 places with bike lanes on each side and 4 gaps. And at the beginning of each gap, there's a conflict point where the person on the bike has to pull into the shared lane with the motor vehicles who could be traveling 40 or 50 miles an hour, according to the speed limit, and also faster. The chance of surviving a crash with those speed differences of top of the hill, the bicycle might be moving 10 miles an hour, and the motor vehicle moving 40 or 50, is under 5%. So we need to we need continuous paved shoulders. I should say that these are being called bike lanes. They are paved shoulders. The difference is that there is no curb and that paved shoulder is multi-use. It serves for vulnerable road users as a place to be out of the motor vehicle flow. It serves as a breakdown lane, and it serves to hold the road together to make the pavement last longer. So I strongly disagree with the part of the resolution that says that the Tower Hill Shelter and the Kids Crossing playground renovations are considered higher priority. I consider this the highest priority. The chances of getting $830,000 for of donations is slim and none. These are highway projects, and we have just had 2 transportation alternatives program grants. The chances of getting another one for this when we had it in our CIP and took it out, I believe, are very low. So I urge you to recommend disapproval to the council.
Thank you, Steve. Pam?
Yeah, Pam Sprecher, and I completely concur with what Steve Arnold is saying. And it is a humongous safety issue. And to think that this money's been allotted since 2008, I find incredibly disgusting that Fitchburg has been putting it off. I'm not sure if we're waiting for a death and then it to come forward that Fitchburg has been putting this off since 2008. That would certainly get it done, but let's do something earlier. I am a one-car family, and I bicycle on that road quite a bit. And Steve is completely right. It is very dangerous. When I run out of, because I'm used to the road, when I run on a pavement, I check back. And there are times when I go off into the gravel because I do not feel safe getting onto that road. Now, how many people don't do that, and how many people are not accustomed to that? So I think it really is a humongous safety issue for people. And I didn't even think about the point that this is a paved shoulder. This isn't even a bike lane. It's a shoulder that is missing, and it just drops off into gravel. So I really think that we need to vote against the resolution. I think it's really very, very important to the Fitchburg community.
Okay, thank you, Pam. We just had Andy Potts join the meeting. Andy, do you have any feedback to offer on the original, on the item up for discussion, which is the resolution?
At this point, I'm just here to hear the public testimony.
Okay.
Could I just get clarification on one thing? I know that, Don, you mentioned that this was in the original 2008 bike and pedestrian plan that was updated in 2017. Do we know what the first year was that there was funding allocated for this in the budget? Does that also go all the way back to 2008?
That I'm not aware. I believe when you were talking about it, you mentioned that it was in the COVID or CARES Act. But that I'm not sure. I realized when we had that plan, there were a lot of recommendations and things that were set forth. Some had funding and some did not, so I'm not aware.
Steve, do you know?
The 2008 Bike and Ped Plan had the policy that we now know is failing us, that to pave more rural uphill stretches, we will pave only the uphill stretches. What this does is it dumps the bicyclist into the motor vehicle lane when they're moving the slowest at the top of the hill. As a result of that, some downhill. So what were paved were Irish Lane, Seminole Highway, Burn Road, and Whalen Road under that policy. The new Bike and Ped Plan recognizes the danger of that and the conflict points it creates, and as a result, the new Bike and Ped Plan 2017 plan reverses that policy and says that paved shoulders should be continuous. I'm sure that a person who knows is watching the meeting, Angie Lucas, and I'm going to ask her to text me if she knows the answer.
Point of order, we're trying to get her linked in. She just sent an email, so if you'll sit tight for a second, we will do that. And I'm going to extend this discussion for another 5 minutes so we can hopefully get a resolution to it. Sure. I'd like to hear Angie's comments since she was around and lives out that way. Also, Ryan Huselman just joined us. Ryan, welcome, Ryan. We're talking about item 4A, resolution 17723, which is pulling the addition of the bike lanes or bike, whatever it's bike shoulder. I'll call it the right thing. Paved shoulders on Whalen Road. Ryan, do you have any comments? And then we'll try and get Angie on the phone.
Thanks. Apologies for showing up a little late. I'm familiar with the resolution, and I don't really have any comments about it other than the fact that I'm a little surprised that we wouldn't want to keep those paved shoulders continuous, because as an avid cyclist myself, I hate having to merge into traffic. So.
Okay, thank you, Ryan. Did we get Angie in yet? That's it. Okay. Yes, go ahead, Andy.
Just been quickly looking through old CIPs, and looks like At least as recently as the furthest back I can see is 2019, where it was recommended.
Okay, thanks, Andy. And
Thank you.
Not to minimize at all, like, if the funding goes back to 2019, 2008, this has been in the bike pedestrian plan since 2008. And I think, the point stands that funding has been in previous years and removed before.
It looks like it was previously, like the 2017 plan, it's recommended for the uphill portions only, and by the 2019 plan, it's recommended to put shoulders in.
Right. I remember the committee discussing it when I joined at the end of 19. So at any rate, I still think I concur we have a safety issue, and we don't have Angie on the phone yet, Scott. Steve, did you want to give feedback from her so we can move? I'm going to move on with this until Angie gets in. I want everybody to give a chance to talk on this. So sorry for the dead time here.
Oh, Mark, if you want, I can certainly weigh in too.
Okay, please.
Yeah, I don't know that I really have much to add beyond what's already been said, other than this clearly is a safety issue. Someone who bikes in that area, I will bike pretty frequently on the section between Muchler and Fitchburg Road because there is a full shoulder there that's well maintained, well marked, but typically don't bike much on the other areas, in part because of the lack of a paved shoulder other than on the uphill sections. I think it very much is a safety issue. If we're not going to, just given the speed differentials, really need to provide that separation. Other than, I think the comment I heard is, maybe we should just lower the speed limit. The city's not willing to provide a safe route, but this seems like by far the easier option is to simply provide the infrastructure that's desperately needed.
Okay. Thank you. Yes, Steve.
Angie mails that she believed the first time funding was to do the additional
The
downhill portions was 2014, and she recommends that Tony Hartman, who lives on the street, be also contacted, but we're obviously not going to do that right now.
So with Angie's feedback and with Andy Potts' feedback, we've heard from all of our committee members. I'm going to entertain a motion to either approve or disapprove this amendment from the bike committee. So I'll open it up for that right now.
I move to oppose the amendment.
Is there a second? I'm sorry, who seconded?
Dawn or I, we both were trying.
Okay, so we'll put Don and Andy have seconded. Is there further discussion on the motion to disapprove the recommendation? Hearing none, we'll call the question. All those in favor of disapproving Resolution R17723 to remove the Wayland Road paved shoulders from the...
Sorry, Mark, point of order. I don't know if Phil could weigh in. Would we be voting, if the resolution is before us, wouldn't we be voting no if we're in opposition of it, rather than voting yes to disapprove it?
I am not honestly clear. My assumption would be that it's still a motion to approve, and then if the body doesn't want to, they would still vote against that.
Right.
Maybe our former mayor can weigh in. Thanks.
Go ahead, Steve.
As parliamentarian, I would suggest that the motion was to recommend disapproval. Yeah. So if you don't want the fund transfer to take place, you will vote aye.
Yeah, that's the way I understand it too. So
I agree with Steve's reading of it.
Yeah.
Just want to make sure.
Yeah, that's how I understand. So just to clarify to the committee members, if you're voting for the motion, you are voting to not support Resolution R177. So we're all on the same page with that. So if there's no further discussion, I will call the question. All those in favor of not supporting Resolution R-177 by the Bike Committee signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Same sign. Okay, thank you for your time and thank you for your input, members of the community. I'm sure we will hear more about this. I would like to advocate, Phil, that we're willing to work with the city to see what can get done to keep this moving forward and in a collaborative fashion. So with that in mind, we're going to move along on the agenda to item 4B, bicycle-related events around Fitchburg, in and around Fitchburg. Phil, you're on.
Okay. Not sure why, but it seems like I can't. Oh, I haven't joined the meeting. That's why. So I can't. Sorry. I'm in a couple of different places. I will share my screen here. So I'm going to try to go through this relatively quickly so we can get on to the bulk of the meeting that I know we all wanted to talk about. A few bike-related events in and around Fitchburg still. We're starting to slow down as we get towards cooler weather, but bike corrals provided for a few home games for the Badgers down by Camp Randall. Still have one more summer ride for Joe. Oh, wait.
Yeah, it's tomorrow. Yes.
There is one tomorrow? Okay. Sorry, I marked May to September there. There is one in October.
Hey,
With the meeting, that's why.
Mark, I'm here now. Sorry it took me forever to get in.
I'm in a couple of different places. I will share my screen here. So go through this relatively quickly so we can get on to the somebody who's listening, could you please mute your microphone? We're getting we're starting to slow down as we get towards cooler weather, but Angie, you're in about a 3-minute delay here, and we're hearing the whole meeting through your microphone. Thank you. Yeah, and then I believe the Madison Queer Bike Rides are still taking place through, I'm not sure on a date there, but still active. And then Santa Cycle Rampage is coming up. It's I'm not as familiar with that ride, but people dress up and bike around the city, and looks like fun. I'm not sure what all goes into that, but that's everything I'm aware of coming up.
Okay. All right. If any questions of Phil's report? Hearing none, we'll move. Go ahead, Joe. Is that you?
About a 3-minute delay here. We're hearing the whole meeting through your microphone. Thank you. Yeah, and
I think she's watching online, so there's a long delay.
Is still Angie's computer?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Moving on.
And bike the city and.
All right. I'm going to try and move on here. For those, we're going to move to item 4C, projects impacting the network.
All right. No major updates here. The same projects that we've been talking about. Just a little bit of progress being made in each of them. So South Sain, since the last meeting, the Lacey and Sain intersection has been opened up. We're just awaiting the traffic signals there, but that intersection is usable. I believe Sain and Sherrill is still closed at the moment for reconstruction that's going on there. Through the end of this year, we're going to have work proceed as far north as Nannyberry Park, and then next year, everything north of that.
It is not my computer, Mark. I have the mute off.
Okay. So I'm looking over to our IT colleague. What's causing this?
She's watching the feed online or on cable or on a different way, and she's got the volume up.
Okay.
So.
Can you hear that, Angie? Turn your volume down.
And then, yeah, phase 2 north to the McCoy-Sain intersection will be completed next year. Lacey and Seminole, that intersection, that roundabout has been opened up. Work is continuing west on Lacey Road. That should be opened up by mid to late November. I believe the goal is mid-November. 17th was the last I saw, but I'm not sure if that's the up-to-date estimate. This is one that, we did discuss in the previous month. I don't think I have anything new to add here. It's just that we have a grant to build this underpass under County Highway MM to connect a couple of separated bike paths along MM. The final public information meeting was held for the MMSD pump station force main rework. No significant updates there. It's still a pretty minimal reroute that's going to take place on the Military Ridge Trail, which is good news. But there's a link here if you'd like to see the detailed information on that whole project. I believe they cover everything from transit impacts and reroutes to environmental impacts and considerations and all the rationale for this project. But again, this is one that's been on our meeting docket for several months now, so I don't think I want to go into tremendous detail there. And then still planning on this Fitchburg Road reconstruction that will add better bike infrastructure along the east side of that road, I believe both bike lanes and also a separate off-street bike path that'll go all the way up under the bridge to Nesbitt Road. Just a quick chart here of other projects that are scheduled. Hopefully you had a chance to check that out when the packet was released. But nothing else significant that hasn't been discussed in recent months.
Okay, thank you. Are there questions of Phil? If there are none, we're going to move to the one of the most important items of our agenda today, which is to discuss the recommendations from the 2017 Bike Ped Plan. And we have 3 members of this committee, or maybe 4, that we're all a part of this. And I had asked you at the last meeting to take a look at the plan, come up with your priorities, then we'll start going through it. The city has asked us to look at these recommendations, and then hopefully in 2024 we move into bringing a consultant back in to be able to update this plan, take out what's been done, leave in what we haven't gotten done, and prioritize them. The other thing I still don't have a firm answer from Chad at the city level is where the PED piece fits. So right now we're just going to focus as a committee on the bike recommendations. Go ahead. Phil wants to speak to that. Go ahead.
Yeah, so just what I've been told from Chad is he's simply looking at, if you look at the charter of the bike committee that's available on the city's website, the bike committee is tasked with specifically bicycling projects and reviewing the 2017 Bike and Pedestrian Plan as it pertains to biking improvements. Because pedestrian infrastructure, pedestrian improvements are not covered within the bike committee's charter, his reading is that means that doesn't fall into the purview of the bike committee, so that's something that is left to staff and council. There's not any other body that's tasked with those improvements. So in looking to update the bike pedestrian plan in the future, anybody who's involved in updating the plan will of course look into those, but in terms of the regular review of pedestrian infrastructure, that's not under the bike committee's umbrella. That's a council and staff matter.
Okay.
Hey, Phil.
Go ahead, Joe.
My question on that, would that be in charge of TTC? Or are they just strictly focused on public transportation and not covering pedestrian?
Yeah, I believe TTC is more focused on public transportation, road network things. I think they don't cover pedestrian matters as far as I know.
Well, I think it's tantamount we get an answer to this because it is important for our city. But I think we've got our task ahead of us and we start there and just not lose sight of the other one. That's my discussion with Chad. That's where we left it. So, Joe, you're our Alder rep on this committee. I think you can be bringing that up too as you sit through your meetings. Kelly, you've got your hand up?
I live with somebody on TTC, and they are planning to adopt the Vision Zero idea, and that means it would need to incorporate, TTC would be incorporating all modes of transportation, including walking, to make things safe for all road users.
Okay.
Bikes and walkers.
Okay, well, we'll see how that... Go ahead, Phil.
Well, would that be TTC specifically adopting Vision Zero, or would that be pushing the city to adopt Vision Zero as a citywide policy?
As far as I know, they would be asking the city to adopt it.
Okay, so I still think then it would be council and staff. I don't think it changes the TTC charter. I believe that would still It just raises it to a higher priority for staff and council.
We just need to get an answer on it. I think that's the key. So if it goes that way, fine. If it goes another way, fine. I just don't want to lose sight of it, and I wanted to use that as an overall view. The other thing I want to use from the existing plan, the process that was done, there was an RFP that was shared with me from 2016, which was very detailed, and it had 4 key points in it: to review the 2008 document, or 14, one of the two, to reevaluate what wasn't completed, to incorporate the feedback from the pedestrian and bike plans in the city, and then more importantly, to provide guidance to the city regarding facilities and programs. The other thing it had in this plan as a way of orientation or overview is that it told us or asked us to set goals and track those goals. And I think on a couple of areas we've been excellent as a committee. In others we have kind of been remiss. And there's a number of reasons for that. We can discuss at a later time. But I think as we go forward, if we're going to work with those same parameters, we need to ensure that we've got accountability built into what we're doing here and tracking of things. So that's my editorial comment on this. As I said, the last time that we engaged in this plan were Joe on our committee, Don Krim, Mike Burry from the police department, and Andy Potts. And it was led by Wade Thompson, who was one of the city planners at that time. So what I want to do is, if I want to hear from you folks, I asked you as an assignment to start off by saying, and this idea actually came from Dawn, so I will give her credit. What are your 5 key priorities as you look at this bike plan that go back to the document that I put together as a discussion point? And I guess I just kind of like to go one at a time and see what you folks think, and then we go from there. So I'm looking at this screen in front of me. Don, you're in the top left corner. Would you mind going first?
I don't mind going first. So, as I think about the plan, a lot of my thoughts, and I will admit, I have been spending some time in the Green Bay community, and biking and biking safety is very low. So I've now become acutely aware of just how it's great to be in a community that thinks of biking at the forefront versus as an afterthought. So I just wanted to share that. As I look at our priorities, I started first with sort of some of the evaluation and performance recommendations. So chapter 4.6, review the plan and progress annually. Again, that speaks to accountability and ensuring that we stay on task and keep some of these priorities at the forefront. The GIC crash data, I think, is important to understand where accidents are happening, so that if we need to reprioritize our list to shore up those vulnerable areas, we should do so. Then I flipped back to chapter 3.2, the bike route network. I think it'd be great to do the bike network implementation, which works toward completing the network of primary and neighborhood routes. And to me, that's also a safety issue. If people can maintain their travels along a trail and connect to another versus having to go to streets that may not be as safe for biking, I think that's advantageous. And so accompanying that is lighting of trails and on-road facilities. Again, staying in touch with that network of systems, lighting, and safety. And then last, chapter 5.2, education and encouragement programs, the citywide network maps. So it's great that if we do the networking, but we also should let people know where those are. So that's where I have landed in looking at prioritizing recommendations from the last plan.
Okay, thank you, Don. Are there questions of Don from any committee members? Hearing none, we will move to the next box on my computer screen. Kelly Jetzer, your feedback.
I concur with all of Dawn's priorities. I have a strong desire that the city focus heavily on making sure that there is a connected, protected bike infrastructure throughout the city for people who wish to or need to use their bike as a mode of transportation. And especially I would like us to focus on actually utilizing the plan as construction or reconstruction of intersections is put forth. I want us to actually make those intersections safe and convenient for vulnerable road users. Looking at what we said was going to happen based on the plan at intersections, and then seeing how the Lacey Seminole infrastructure was redesigned, we did not follow the plan at all. So I would like it if we could make sure that the plan is actually noticed and followed when construction projects are taken on. And then I would prioritize maintenance of the paths for full year, all year, so that during the winter, people who are still trying to ride their bike as a mode of transportation are not stuck at home, and that we specifically make sure that intersections, that the road crews don't come through and make it so that you get to an intersection and then you can't move forward. And that's not just for bikes. I feel like we're ADA non-compliant if we don't make those intersections safe during snow time. And then education. One thing that I would highly recommend that we work toward is path etiquette map signs. There's a lovely one at Post Road and the Cannonball Trail, and that's in the Madison area. And I feel like if we had a lot of those on our trails throughout Fitchburg, we would make a big difference for all path users. And then I guess those are the big ones for me.
Can I ask a point of clarification to you and Andy, who I think commute to work? Aren't the trails paved, snow plowed?
Some are. In Madison, they are.
So the Fitchburg ones are not. Is that correct?
Several Fitchburg ones are not until several days after all the roads are plowed. And the other thing is, even if the paths are plowed, when the road crews come through, they make a huge pile of snow at intersections so that not just bikers, but anybody in a wheelchair or any other mobility device can't cross a road and get back onto the path.
Okay, all right.
That's my experience on my route. Andy, how about you?
I would say generally the roads the paths I take are paved. I would think the notable exception is probably the Cap City Trail, which is maintained by Dane County.
Right.
And even then, there's a weird arrangement that they have set up in terms of maintaining that. It really depends on the specific path, but for sure in the wintertime, I usually avoid Cap City due to the snow and ice that builds up on it.
Okay, I've got enough info. I think we can get it on our list. I'm going to try and move down the list. Joe, your feedback you're next on the box. Thank you, Kelly. Joe, what's your feedback on the current plan and priorities?
Mark, if you wouldn't mind letting a few folks go ahead of me, I just want to get to my computer.
That's fine. Mr. Potts.
I'm on my phone right now.
That's fine. Mr. Potts, you're next.
Okay. Yeah, so the items I had, and it's kind of similar to what other people have been saying. So I think I had the 3.2, the bike network implementation. While it's being obviously we're doing, and we have been working to connect the network. It's still, I think, one of the top things we can do in terms of improving cycling within the city. Similarly, another item 3.2 is the treatment at intersections and improving the intersections and crossings. Those are the points of conflict between bike and ped users and other users of the transportation network. Again, I think we have been making progress on that, but they're just of such high importance that I kind of have those as my top two. An item also within 3.2 that we haven't really been working on is lighting of trails and on-road facilities. Somebody who primarily bikes during the daytime, but certainly does bike after it's dark. I can attest that the trails are rather dark in Fitchburg, as opposed to Madison, where there's actually pretty decent trail lighting on kind of the major thoroughfares. So that seems to be an item that's kind of gotten dropped off since we last looked at this plan. I also have 4.5, the surface repair and resurfacing. I think it feels like we've followed in large part kind of the 3.2 bike network implementation. We've put in additional trails, but then we're not necessarily maintaining them. And some of the riding surfaces are getting pretty bad. And there's sections of the side path, kind of the greenway along Fitchburg Road, where if that were a road surface that automobiles were driving on, people would be up in arms about how terrible it was. But because it's a bike path, people just seem to be content with having a cracked and broken surface that's difficult to get through. And then the last item I had is just, I think other people have mentioned as well, is just to review the plan and its progress annually, so that we aren't going years in between plans. And obviously we would, I think, update the plan every 5 years or so, but for sure we need to be going back and just kind of going through this punch list of items and making sure that we're following it.
Okay. Thank you, Andy. Ryan, your comments.
Okay. Yeah, I pretty much concur with everyone before me. Just one of my larger concerns is wayfinding. You know, as an avid cyclist, I can get around pretty easily, but folks who are recreationally riding around can sometimes get pretty easily turned around. So having signage that's clear and easy to follow, to know where people are and where to go for things is important to me. So that's something I think would be a good focus. In addition to that, intersection awareness. So, for example, the Fish Hatchery Seminole intersection that was recently redone. The slip lane there is particularly dangerous for cyclists and pedestrians, and I was not a fan of how that was done. So I think to Kelly's point, making sure that we're following the plan when we're doing construction is important, because we need to make sure that the infrastructure and the intersection points between automobiles and pedestrians and cyclists are as safe as they possibly can be. I also second Andy's comment about that Fish Hatchery bike path. It is not great. I don't have a lot of experience with some of the other paths in Fitchburg as much, but I imagine that there are several others out there that need that work.
Yeah. Hey, Ryan, can I get a clarification? Where are you speaking along Fish Hatch? Is it going north of, going south of City Hall, or going north back up towards the businesses?
It's south of McKee Road as you head towards City Hall.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted my own clarification.
Mark, that's the section I was referencing to. It's between McKee and roughly
right,
Lacey.
Cheryl. McKee and Lacey. Okay, that's fine.
Right around right around Cheryl's really bad.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree. I ride that regularly. I just wanted to get a clarification because I know some of that on the other side going south up fish hatcheries or north is new. So, okay. Ryan, anything else you'd like to add?
Nothing, no.
Okay. Joe, are you at your computer yet?
I'm not, but I'll go anyways. I think just it's a small thing, but an important thing is ensuring that projects go through the bike committee before they get referred straight to council. I think oftentimes the committee gets overlooked or bypassed, and if it isn't for somebody making an amendment to the consent agenda, then oftentimes these projects just sort of pass through without our notification. So I think it's really important that this committee get utilized, and especially for kind of what Kelly mentioned earlier, kind of larger construction projects and the impact that it has on bikes.
Okay, so I'm paraphrasing that as a better link with our public works and streets folks. And I think that's been one that's been off and on with this committee, and we can talk about that later. The other item before I give any other comment, my quick comments, is that I'm going to ask Chad and Phil that we spend one meeting a year reviewing this plan and the progress, because this is the one thing that we heard when we talked to the Bike League was tracking things that we do. We've done a lot of things in the 4 years I've sat on this committee, and most of you have been on this committee with me, in terms of things like B-Cycle and we have made road projects. We haven't made enough, but we've done education in our schools, and I see us moving up, but we haven't moved us up enough. And I want to use this plan. My two things on here are, actually there's three. One is I support the bike network extension and better connection together, which includes the lighting of the trails. Thirdly, and one that is a low-hanging fruit, is community events. We need to be doing more community-led bike rides. I think the rides with Joe is something great that we've had this year with our senior center, but we need to be, I've been doing some digging online. There's a lot of other communities that have a lot of rides. And we've got the Boys and Girls Club ride, but that's not a Fitchburg only ride, for example. At the same point in time is the education with our schools, and that's part of our challenge. We've got 3 school systems to deal with. I think we have Leopold at least in the box, but we don't have Verona and we don't have Oregon. And I'm going to try and work with Mike Grady, who's on the Bike Fitchburg board, who's one of the 2 trained folks in this city, and see what we can do with them. And lastly is what Steve spoke to earlier, which was Vision Zero. We need to focus on this. All these things, if we don't have them in our plan and aren't tracking them, will not drive us to gold. The last point of this, from my perspective in planning, is that we need the city to give us more support and resources. I've heard it alluded to in several comments regarding plans and things not getting done till they come to us at the last minute. We've got to ensure there's a better connection. And I thought we had one, but I think with some of the turnover, it's been kind of a challenge. So I'm pretty much 90% agreeing with you folks. I guess what I'd like to ask next is there anything on here we should take off, excluding the peds? And I'm just going to open it up rather than have you go through it. Well, I'll jump in. There's one on there. We've got B-Cycles in the plan. We did get B-Cycle in. We've got phase 2 coming. Whether the next challenge, I think, with B-Cycles is the ones that aren't getting used. We're starting to get data. The ones that aren't getting used, do we work with B-Cycle to move them? Helen reported to us that the B-Cycle station with the most checkouts was at Oak Bank over there on Seminole and PD. I think the second one, and I didn't bring the worksheet, the second one was over at McKee Farms Park. There are others that aren't getting a lot of use. As we get them all in to cover our needy areas of the city, what do we do with them? The other thing is looking at our mode and how many people in this town are riding to and from work. I don't know a lot. I know Kelly and Andy do, but I think that the point on that is that we need to be tracking it, and if more people aren't riding to work, digging in why aren't they riding to work. So community feedback as a part of this process, I think, is going to be very, very important to us. But I do think we shouldn't kick ourselves too badly as we look at our plan. We've gotten a lot accomplished. And I think also this committee has focused on safety. I think our discussion this morning gave us another focus on safety. So I understand, and Joe, I'm going to kind of ask you here. I think the plan, and I think Phil, the plan for this is still in the budget to get a consultant in 2024. Was that taken out of the budget?
That's still in the budget.
Okay, thank you. Then I'm going to recommend, as we finish this piece of this, I'll make the comments you folks gave us today. And then, as I said earlier, we look at what has been accomplished. We've got bridges, we've got B-cycle, we changed the registration process. We had a link with our street planning, and I think, as I said, as people changed, it got done. There was lights put along Seminole Highway. We've done some school education, bike giveaways. We've started to talk to our local partners. We got a neighborhood hub coming up north, and then we've done a lot of education, helmets and bike giveaways between Steve and Mike Grady, who've done a lot of that over the course of the summer. And we've also expanded our multi-use pass. So we've done some great things. I just think we need to move it all to the next level. And that's my 2 cents. And you could feel free to disagree with me. Any other comments about the plan? This didn't take as long as I thought it would. Angie, you just lightened up. Do you have comments? Oh, okay.
No, I just wanted to say I agree with you, Mark. I think that there has been a lot of things accomplished. And once I get past my opinion of a certain road, I really see that there's been a lot of great things. So kudos.
Well, I think it's kudos to the whole committee, and you were a part of this committee too. And I have to give Steve kudos when he was mayor. This was put together. There was just a lot on it, and I think we picked up and worked on what we could. I still want to see traffic slowed down in the city. I didn't mention that, but I think it all goes into what you folks all said. The previous plan had a lot of mention about police enforcement, and I think that warrants further discussion with our police colleagues in the city as we go forward. So I'm hoping we can move into a full-blown planning process in 2024, which will get a consultant back in. I have done some that looked at that consultant that was hired out of Minneapolis. They're still doing this kind of work. Andy Potts had given us some information on consultants and some cost. And as I said, we had Andy, Don, Joe, and I'm missing somebody. Mike Burry from the police, who are all supporting on this last time. So we do need to bring our city colleagues into this place, and we need to move it forward. In addition, we need to move parallel with the bike league things, and if we're going to go for gold. And I think it kind of ties into this, unless there's going to be some priorities set and some specific resources dedicated to cycling in our city, as well as money. Somebody mentioned, I think Pam mentioned the roads, the signs at coming into Madison. Well, the orange ones, this bike committee got, there's 4 of those around the trails here in the city that say, trails for everybody, please be safe, please be courteous. So we're working on safety as well, but courtesy on the trails is a big deal. So I have talked enough on this. Phil, do you have any comments?
I could probably come up with something. So I know one thing that I've mentioned before, and I guess this just comes with my role being in sustainability. The whole point is trying to create linkages between different areas. I know that I have mentioned this, and obviously this isn't under the bike committee's purview, but when I think about Fitchburg being more bikeable, of course, improved infrastructure, better intersections, lighted paths, everything that's being mentioned is really important for improving biking. But I'm thinking about the way that Fitchburg grows and where Fitchburg grows, and those are really essential. I think you would find a common theme with most of the most bikeable cities in the country and in the world is that they're more densely developed. When you have denser development, you have lower speed limits because there are more pedestrians, more cyclists, more cars coming in and out, more driveways, all those kinds of things. The high-speed roads end up being like Wayland Road, where Wayland is still very low density, rural in some sections. My guess is that I know that in 2008 we pursued the uphill bike lanes as an effort to improve biking along there. If that had not been done, my guess is that biking along Wayland wouldn't be a priority at all for the city right now, because there is more effort being put on more dense developments and really trying to improve the network here. And so that's a big thing that I spend time thinking about, is just how is Fitchburg growing and where is Fitchburg growing, and are we pursuing infill within the existing urban service area where we have opportunities for infill to increase density, or are we simply expanding the city, continuing to make it a relatively low density area? And that just means you have so many more miles of road that you're looking to match one-to-one with bike lanes. So it's really a question of kind of urban development and growth, or suburban development and growth in general. And that's, again, like I said, that's not something that's under Bike Committee's purview. It's certainly something that when matters come before council, if these are things that as residents you care about, I'd certainly encourage you to speak to other committees about those. When a question comes up about new developments in different areas, think about that and how it impacts not just that part of the city, but how does that impact service delivery in the city? How does that impact bike infrastructure? And I think these are all a lot more integrated than probably most people end up spending time thinking on. But it means that we're just not being as efficient with our efforts as we could be, because we're not necessarily all working together on making sure that things are our disparate interests are as aligned as possible.
Okay, thank you. Well, I do think the other thing I looked at, there is one more that I didn't mention about this plan. Southdale has come into our purview since the last plan was done, and we need to, as we plan, we need to take a look at that. I know that there's been some talk with what's been presented today about a connection under one of the roads and then a path to get over there, but we need to engage them as well as the rest of our community. So, as I said, I think it's time. I'm going to go back to the city, try and summarize these things. And as I think, as Angie said, we have made a lot of positive progress. We have not done a good job as a committee, and I'll take the blame for that, of being chair the last year and a half. We need to be managing this, and I think we were doing it based on the gold decision, which had all this stuff in there, by the way, but not quite to some detail. So what I've tried to do is I'll wrap this up. I will work with Phil to get to the city, to get a plan, to get an RFP out, is what happens next, and get a small work group, and then put some other process around this during 2024. I think we wait till after the first of the year as we do that. So more to come on that. I'm going to, if there's nothing else on this plan, I'm going to shift you to the next item on the agenda, which is, as I was preparing for this meeting, and we've had a list of priorities throughout the time I've been on this committee, and we've worked on, I want to say 98% of them probably, but I came up with a list of things I want to make sure we're following up on a regular basis, and that's what Joe said, and I think I heard somebody else say that as well. And I've got, and I gave you an attachment in this document, so we've moved on to the next item on the agenda, and it's a bike, I just called it nothing else, a bike committee follow-up list. If you want to take a look at it, if you could turn to it, I'd appreciate it. And I put down, we've got traffic and roads. There's been some issues raised around Military Ridge crossing at Cottonwood Drive, and Andy and I were at this meeting where CETA, where they talked to us from General Beverage about the unsafe intersection, and I have been working with Tim Yelker to make some changes in that. There's a TAP grant going through for Public Works, and it's more related to bicycling infrastructure on that east side, on the west side of town. We have traffics out there. We're collecting data, but we're not setting goals and monitoring it, and we need to do a much better job with that. As you look at Phil's sharing your screen here. So we need to work on that. The next thing is number 3 is the bike ped plan update. Self-explanatory what we're doing. Item 4 is an increase in senior cycling. We had a group that met last spring, and we, thanks to Andy Potts and Steve and Thad Schumacher's support and the senior center, we got, we've had 5, up now tomorrow, 5 rides for Joe, which have had anywhere from 10 to 15 to 18 people riding each time. The senior center folks are loving this. And we got to figure out how we can increase other seniors' engagement as well as other people's engagement in the city. The Bike League application from the meeting with the Bike League, of which Phil and Steve and myself and Chad, and was there anybody else that participated? And Andy couldn't. We had a meeting with the Bike League, and I can send you those minutes, but they pretty much, they told us we were a solid silver ranking. They gave us 8 to 10 things that you've all seen that we need to do to move to gold. We've talked about a lot of them today. They suggested that we maybe consider reapplying in 2026, but they also specifically pointed out that our own bike plan said it would be upgraded in 2020, 2021. Now, I'm going to blame COVID for that. That didn't get done, but at any rate, they look at everything we put out there, including they may be even listening to our meetings. I don't know for sure. The next one, item number 6, is APB parking across the city, both in new developments and in our parks. I have given Scott Endel a proposal to put bike parking in the larger parks. I personally made a road trip to all the parks, neighborhood, and community across the city this summer and gave him some things to focus on and gave it to Chad as well. So hopefully that's in the budget for next year. Bike-friendly business has been an effort between Bike Fitchburg and some of the members of this committee. It's one of those things that we can certainly get more, but believe it or not, the bike plan only had 5 businesses. We've got 9 or 10 now, so we've been successful there. B-Cycle, we've got phase 2 that is coming online, and then we got to track our usage. And then lastly, I think we need to set our 2024 priorities, and I'd like to see us use, at least as long as I'm still chair, one of our upcoming meetings or a special meeting, which I will at least request, just to review our plans and set goals for the year. I know this is one thing that our constituents in Bike Fitchburg started to do, and I think they're still working out their kinks in it, but at least it gives us a network to work from. Lets us focus on the ongoing things and then take it to the next step when things come up like this issue this morning. So I'm going to stop there. Are there other things we should be following up for ongoing review? Okay, then let's keep moving on in the agenda. So Phil, you are up next. We are on item number 5A. And Joe, you've got the floor, sorry, for an Alder update. You still there, Joe? Oh, go ahead.
I do not have any updates.
Okay.
From the council.
Okay,
Yep.
that's fine. That's fine. All right, then next we'll move along to 5B, which is the staff report of the Bike Committee.
Yeah, I can share a couple things here. So Mark mentioned we have some preliminary B-cycle data that Helen Bradley shared with me. I'll go ahead and pull this up here. This is a little bit maybe easier to see. Hopefully that's visible to everybody. So we do have, she said that we're getting at Oak Bank 4.75 checkouts per day. So that is our most popular station right now. And that goes down to the Limerick is the lowest. In terms of, Mark, your question about moving stations, that's certainly something that as we go on, if we discover there are stations that just really aren't getting usage and we know of a place that would be better, we could remove bikes and move them somewhere else. It's a little more complicated with a couple of factors. One is that for a lot of these stations, we are pouring concrete pads, so there's sort of you don't want to get too married to your sunk cost, but if we've adding a bunch more concrete pads all over the city to keep moving stations around isn't ideal. So we want to find that balance. But certainly right now, the lowest usage is at the Limerick. I would think the people who are checking bikes out from the Limerick are getting a lot of value out of those, but it's lower than all the other sites. That's also one that is at that location because of a private sponsorship, and so that's not a station that's going to be moved elsewhere based on ridership. But certainly as things go forward, we're going to keep evaluating this data. The data tells us some things, but not everything. The second lowest used station right now is Hatchery Hill Park. Is that because it's not in a good spot, or is it because it's not near enough to other stations? So as we add more B-cycle along North Fish Hatchery, my guess is that Hatchery Hill Park is going to get more usage, but that's just something that we'll see as stations get added. To that point, stations getting added, here is the current station map. Make that full screen. Fitchburg is from 7 stations, we're up to 10 now. So phase 2 is underway. We've got a contract signed with B-Cycle. Council approved that contract, as well as green lighting the spending of funds to get phase 2 rolling, and then we'll get 80% of that reimbursed by the TAP grant. But the 3 stations that have been added so far for phase 2 are at the library down here at Civic Campus, as well as Boys and Girls Club over in the Allied community, and the Mackenzie Center. So we've expanded our reach a little bit. We are planning, as soon as we can free up some time, our parks team is incredibly busy, but as soon as we can get some time on their schedule to get some concrete poured, we have plans this fall to get stations added at the senior center and community center, city halls, the other side of Civic Campus, the Dolly Bike Hub over here just off Seminole Highway, McGaw Park we're going to get added, and then also Swan Creek Park.
Right.
And why am I blanking on which side? That's over here by
Swan Creek's
McCoy.
over on East Sherrill.
Yep, I was trying to figure out which side of the Swan Creek neighborhood this is on, so I'm doing great here. Swan Creek Park we're going to add as well. So we have 100 total docks to add for phase 2. Between those spots I just mentioned, I think that's about 50 or 55 of those 100 docks. So we still have more to go. We know we're planning on a station at the North Fish Hatchery Neighborhood Hub once that gets underway. And then there's still, we'd like to get something over on the west side of Verona Road here along Anton Road, Anton Drive. And then we'll see. We have a number of other areas that we'd really like to add. Obviously, Fitchburg has a lot of space, and the more densely you add these stations, the more they get used, and so you kind of want to just keep going. But we have a limit here for phase 2. We'll try to put those stations out as thoughtfully as we can, and then go from there. The other one is we still like to get one over here off the intersection of McCoy and Sain at that Cap City trailhead. That's something that we'd have to coordinate with Dane County because that trail is under their management, so we need to make sure that they're on board with anything there. And then Southdale is another one that is high up on our list, is getting at least one station up there. There's a few good candidates. That's where we are. Andy, you've got a question?
Well, it's a comment and a question. One, I'm glad to see the Mackenzie Center location in, and I go by that station every day, and unless Michael Johnson's going around and rearranging the bikes every day, it seems like they're getting usage just based on where the bikes are positioned in the rack and the number that are there. But I guess my question is, did Helen give any indication what the numbers mean? Like, was it 4.72 at Oak Bank? Is that a good number? Is that a bad number? I guess without any context, I can see how it compares with the other stations in our network, but
sure,
what does that mean in the grand scheme of things?
We didn't really get an analysis, so we're going to get a more detailed annual analysis from B-Cycle about overall ridership. I've asked her to provide us with at least quarterly data updates, but it's not going to come with much insight from there, and it's just kind of here's the raw numbers, so we know what things look like. What I noted was that, so we have a total number of checkouts here, 3,500, and this is in about a half a year, half a season's worth of riding. So that means you'd be looking at, just for these 7 stations, somewhere around 6,000 in a full summer. Obviously, these are apples and oranges. Madison's a different city. They started B-Cycle 10 years ago. When it was bike sharing was less of a common thing. They were all manual pedal, not e-assist bikes. But in Madison's first year, I believe they had 10,000 rides. So us being on pace for a year of 6,000, to me, that's good. I don't really have any. I can't back that up with any authority, but to me, this looks like a successful launch. I can't say, though, like to your question, I don't have any objective data to back that up.
Andy, I think your comment's well taken, and again, I also have been talking with Helen for some different reasons, and yeah, I think we maybe need to invite her to a future meeting, maybe a good thing to do, to have her talk about it. Mm-hmm. Second of all, when I made the comment about moving things around, I meant more adding the second part with the tap situation, sure. Because some of these sites on phase 1 that are already in, they were businesses who gave money to support as sponsors, and the Limerick is one. That's a senior. There's seniors over there, and I think they included some things in their living over there. You could use those bikes, so that's just something we probably ought to ask the owner over there, or the guy that runs it, Lane Manning, who's president of the chamber. How's that working for them? So, but I do think we need to have Helen give us some analysis of this down the road, so we can put that on the agenda for the future, maybe our next meeting.
And Kelly, you get your hand raised?
Yeah, I have a question about whether there was any analysis about how often people show up and want to use the bikes that are there, and for some reason they don't, they're not usable. At McKee Park one morning, I was out and a guy showed up with his backpack ready to bike to work on a B-cycle, and none of the bikes would actually, he couldn't actually get them to check out. And then I tried, because I also have B-cycle payment, and they wouldn't open up for me either. And then it happened to Bill later on, but that was in Madison. But I'm just wondering if there's any analysis of how often people who are paying for the B-cycle service show up to a bike that is there and looks to be ready, but it won't allow them to check it out.
I have no idea. I'd have to ask Helen about that. My guess is that they track reports that are called in or emailed to them. If it's not communicated, then they wouldn't know. They did not reply to the comments that we let them know that it wasn't working and did not receive any kind of feedback. So, yeah, and I can't answer for them there. I know that if they receive comments, I certainly would hope that they're tracking those, but I don't know anything about how they monitor that.
That's the first I've heard of that, but I think we can invite Kelly Helen to our December meeting, and we can ask her those kinds of questions from that perspective. I know they've got 24/7, 365. Well, when the bikes are out, staff that are working on those things. So if something's not working, they bring these trucks out and they replace the bikes. And that's the first I've heard of anybody trying to get one that didn't happen. So. Again, we'll invite Helen to our December meeting and have her bring some more updated data, including some comparison data like with Madison. But I think, as Phil said, Madison's a different animal than us. And if you want to look at Madison, you got to somehow take out the university piece of it and the isthmus. But I think it's a good question, and we need to find out why as users. But I've heard nothing but positive comments personally about the bikes out here. Okay.
Yeah, I've seen lots of people using them, so I know they work.
Yeah.
And it seems like people are having a great time with them.
Right.
I just want to know for sure if we can make it clear to people what to do if it's not working and how to report it so that it actually gets responded to. All right, thank you.
Education. Okay. All right. Thank you, Kelly. Phil, anything else?
I don't believe so. So I know I guess there's not an update on, at the last meeting, I mentioned that I was talking with Ross Kaler about TAP grant and Dane County Park and Ride grant projects. So those are still planned, but the application cycle is coming up over the winter. So as there's more on those, I'll let you know. But that would if we get those grants, address the Southdale connector for sure. But yeah, nothing else for staff update.
All right, I'm going to move on to item 5C, Bike Fitchburg update. Steve, Arnold, you had registered to speak on this. So 3 minutes, you're on.
Well, I thought I had 45 minutes. This is not a public appearance, so I don't think I'm limited to 3 minutes, but I will talk for as long as you allow.
Whatever, go.
So just a couple of items. Some events and things that didn't make Phil's list. I did have a ride of 25 high school students from Oshkosh North High School, all on B-cycles. We came around the Southwest and Cap City loops, visiting Fitchburg for their field trip. That worked out really great. A smaller group did the lake loop around Lake Mendota. So they come down every year, but this is a group in the spring, but this is a group that didn't get their visit to Madison due to COVID, and they were about to graduate, so they had a special trip. The Transportation Commission has been, which works basically on policy as well as transit, has made feedback to the Beltline Planning and Environmental Linkages, or PEL study. This is the Beltline 2050 planning process, and of great interest to many of us is new crossings over and under the Beltline, such as reconnecting Badger Road and Perry Street and connecting the Southdale neighborhood to the Stewart Street industrial area in Madison. You'll know it as Greenway Cross, perhaps. So these are some great things that will help to mitigate the damage that the Beltline does to our communities. I think it was already mentioned that we had a great turnout for National Night Out, and that the police bike patrol is up and running with their electric bikes. We do have a zoning complaint out for one of the apartments complexes on the east side that changed ownership before they got their bike parking in, and so they never installed required bike parking. Bike parking is required in the Smart Code district, so we're working that to get that taken care of. It was already mentioned that we are working on Vision Zero. That includes things like reducing speed limits, providing separate facilities where they're needed to keep users, transportation users that are operating at different speeds separate. The Kyle Stiegert Greenway Memorial Project along the Cap City Trail is stalled. The city is making an example of our project. City administration is concerned about sustainable maintenance funding, and of the parks we're basically overcommitted compared to the amount of maintenance capacity we have to maintain our facilities. This was actually the root cause of the resolution that you recommended against earlier. And so we're being asked to provide, in addition to everything that was going into the park, cash to replace everything that's going into the park in 10 years of maintenance. So we're trying to figure out what the impact of that is going to be and whether the whole park is still feasible. We had our annual fundraiser ride, Pick Me Up at the Border, 2 Fridays ago. We had 40 people sign up. Almost all of them showed up. The weather was pretty good considering the threat of rain. About 15 folks made it to the border and back, a distance of about 80 miles. With regard to the Fitchburg Greenway system, that was kind of stalled due to due to staff turnover in Public Works. And in the past month, I briefed our new transportation engineer and our relatively new Public Works Director on the project, and so that will be moving forward with signage at the demonstration intersections of the Fish Hatchery Greenway and Traceway Drive and Post Road. As mentioned, the rides for Joe, which were so popular that they asked us to do an October ride, so that will be tomorrow. Sunday, we had the Ride for Life. I'm wearing the ride t-shirt. That was a critical mass ride with over 630 people registered. Bike Fitchburg and Mad City Velo were part of the marshaling of that effort. It was a critical mass type ride to take up space and remind transportation system users that we are here as bikers and we want safe streets. Specifically, we would like the Sarah Langenkamp law passed that would allow more flexible use of federal highway dollars in their safety program. So that was considered a big success. Mark worked with the administration last year to use some 2022 funds to buy bicycle parking for our parks. And I did notice on a ride over the weekend that those new parking stalls are installed at the pickleball courts at McGaw Park. I have not been at the other 2 locations in Wildwood or Swan Creek to see if they were in yet. And on your previous discussion about B-cycles, I can tell you that Helen Bradley is very excited about Fitchburg's numbers. She thinks that they're good and exceeding expectations. So this is not to diminish the need for her to visit and give you a full analysis, but I do know that she's very happy with it. So that's a leading a hint. Are there any questions about, one more thing, on the bicycle-friendly businesses, I did want to say that this campus, the city's civic campus, was designated a gold bicycle-friendly business, the 3 buildings together. And that makes our 14th bicycle-friendly business due to the fact that some of the ones in Madison did not renew, and that Saris is on the Bike League website as being in Madison, but it's really in Fitchburg. Fitchburg has 14 bicycle-friendly businesses, the most of any city in the state. Madison has 13. So we expect, I think we have kicked a sleeping bear over at Madison Bikes, and they will be going out and recruiting to pass us. So we have to get our game up, Mark. That's all.
I would add to what Steve just said, and I want to thank Steve. Steve and I kind of shepherded this bike-friendly business project, and it was in the bike plan, and it asked for only 5. And as he said, we have 14. We've got a list of another 10 to 15 businesses that we're going to focus on in the city and kind of split it up and get the work done. We need to update some of our packet material. But if any of you on the committee have businesses you think we should approach that we haven't yet, let us know, and we can. And it's always nice to have a contact and do it in person versus doing it over the phone or do it on a Zoom or email. So I view it as one of those low-hanging fruits to get people to commit to it. But the key is, I think, as Kelly and Andy had talked about earlier, people riding to work in this city, we've got to get a handle on it, a good handle on it, and what we can do to increase it. And part of it is connecting our trails and other things we talked about, lighted trails, et cetera. So more to come on all of this. But I think that I'm trying to stay linked through the Bike Fitchburg by attending their meetings as I can. I'm giving them a report every meeting, and I think we've got, again, as we look at the plan, I'm not shooting ourselves at it. We've done a lot of work. We just got a lot more to do. So with that, I'm going to entertain, if there's any announcements from the committee, I'll ask for that. If not, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
Moved by Joe. Was that Ryan that seconded?
Was
Or
Andy.
Okay, seconded by Andy. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye?
Aye.
All right. Hearing none, or opposed, same sign. Okay, the meeting is adjourned. Our next meeting is December 5th, and we'll have an agenda out to you soon. And one of the items I will try and put on it is to come back to with B-Cycle. And Phil, I will ask you to keep us advised, you and Alder Maldonado, what's going on with the referendum about Wayland Road, okay? Keep the committee advised. So thank you for all your time. Thank you, folks, for looking at this document. And I thank you for your work so far. Again, I'm very pleased we're making progress, and we'll continue to do so. And if you've got anything we need to be doing differently or you have suggestions on, please let me know.